Back in the 15th century, skin color as a basis for division didn't surprise anyone. That was the age of colonialism and European dominance over much of the world. In this episode of UZ, we'll explore race from the perspective of modern science, simplifying complex ideas in genetics and finally answering the question, how did Europeans come to have white skin? No matter what your skin color is, we invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. The link between race, skin color, and ideas of human origin and temperament has been explored for centuries. Ancient Greek myths, for example, explained dark skin through the tale of Phaeton, the son of the sun god Helios, who burned the earth when he got too close, scorching some white-skinned people in the process. Greek philosophers like Hippocrates believed skin color depended on climate and geography. In ancient Chinese and Indian cultures, white skin was seen as a mark of nobility, often indicating that someone didn't have to work outside. In 1684, French physician François Bernier divided humanity into 4 races based on differences in facial features, skin tone, hair, eyes, language, and culture. In modern terms, these groups were classified as Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid, and Lapoid, the last one referring to indigenous Arctic populations of northern Scandinavia and Russia. During the Enlightenment, 2 major theories of racial origin emerged, monogenism and polygenism. Monogenism proposed that all humans shared a common origin, while polygenism claimed that each race developed separately. A prominent supporter of polygenism was Voltaire, who wrote that the black race was as different from whites as spaniels are from greyhounds. On the other hand, philosopher Immanuel Kant was a monogynist, though today many of his views would be considered racist. He believed climate-shaped racial differences and claimed that white people represented humanity's highest form, while other groups, Native Americans, Black Africans, and certain indigenous Americans, had fewer talents or lower value. Later thinkers, like Carl Linnaeus, began to correct these misconceptions. He ultimately classified all humans as one species, Homo sapiens. However, the old theories left a long-lasting mark on science and laid the foundation for what would later become scientific racism, the false belief in the superiority of one race over another, which was used to justify slavery, Nazism, and racial segregation. Speaking of which, we've got a separate video about the history of racism in the US, you'll find the link in the description. Sadly, these ideas aren't just part of history. In Ukraine, social division still exists, not along racial lines but through other kinds of conflict. That's where humor can help. A perfect example is the 2nd season of the Ukrainian sitcom Holova, which tells the story of a small village during wartime. Despite their hardships, the characters keep dreaming of a better life, but of course, as sitcom rules go, problems grow until they explode into laughter. The show's sharp writing earned a Screenwriters Guild Award, and this season also explores how Russian propaganda tries to influence Ukrainians. We won't spoil the story, but one thing's clear. In the end, the heroes come together to bring victory closer. You can find the series on YouTube, link in the description. The cast includes Yevhen Lesnikiai, Dmytro Hryevets, Alexander Rudinsky, and others. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments. But now, let's put politics aside and turn to molecular biology and phylogenetics. So why is European skin lighter, while populations on other continents generally have darker skin? Evolutionary biologists have shown that dark skin plays a critical role in protecting against intense UV radiation. When light-skinned people tan, the skin produces a golden bronze color. That's melanin, a natural defense against UV exposure. But here's the problem: melanin, while protective, also blocks UV from triggering vitamin D production in the body. And we need vitamin D to absorb calcium and phosphorus. It supports our bones and immune system. In sunny regions, this isn't an issue. Enough UV still gets through the melanin shield. But in places with long winters and short, cloudy summers, darker-skinned people historically struggled to produce enough vitamin D. Thousands of years ago, that led to weakened immunity and bone diseases in northern latitudes. Today, we have vitamin D-rich foods and supplements. But for early humans, this was a life or death issue. When modern humans, who originally had dark skin, tried to settle northern Europe after the last ice age, most of them didn't survive. Archaeogenetics shows that early Europeans were dark-skinned. This was confirmed through DNA extracted from 8,000 to 9,000-year-old human remains. Evolution eventually favored lighter skin as a genetic adaptation to lower sunlight. That change didn't happen overnight. It took thousands of years of migration, dietary shifts, and climate exposure. According to the dominant out of Africa theory, Homo sapiens first appeared on the Somali Peninsula around 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. Several migration waves brought humans from Africa to Europe, Asia, Australia, and the Americas. The main migration into Eurasia happened around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago. So what made European skin light? Two gene mutations, SLC24A5 and SLC45A2, played a major role. The original versions of these genes were linked to dark skin and were common in early migrants from Africa. But as people moved north, these variants became problematic. Mutations in these genes lowered melanin production, making skin lighter and allowing for better vitamin D synthesis in low sunlight environments. Today, over 90% of native Europeans carry these mutations, a sign of strong evolutionary selection. The SLC24A5 gene helps produce melanin in skin cells called melanocytes. The mutated version of this gene led to reduced pigmentation and was favored in Europe. The SLC45A2 gene, on the other hand, controls the type and amount of melanin produced. A different mutation in this gene helped early Europeans reduce eumelanin, the dark pigment responsible for brown and black skin and hair. This shift made vitamin D production more efficient in dim light. The mutation began around 7,700 years ago in what's now Sweden and gradually spread across the Baltic and throughout Europe. But in southern and central Europe, a slightly different mutation in SLC45A2 developed. It allowed for more melanin than in the north, meaning southern Europeans remained somewhat darker-skinned, a perfect middle ground. This balance helped protect against sun damage and still allowed for sufficient vitamin D production. Scientists believe this version of the gene emerged around 5,800 years ago, during a wave of migration by farmers from Western Asia. Agriculture meant a more plant-based, vitamin-poor diet, which made this mutation essential for survival. Later, in the 20th century, Nazi theorist Hans Gunther divided the so-called European race into 5 subtypes: Nordic, Mediterranean, Dinaric, Alpine, and East Baltic. He described these groups by physical traits, eye and hair color, facial features, and even claimed psychological differences, inventing the idea of a racial soul. In his book Racial Science of the German People, Gunther placed the Nordic subtype at the top of his racial hierarchy. Another Nazi ideologue, Alfred Rosenberg, went further. In the myth of the 20th century, he credited all of human cultural achievement to Nordic blood and claimed mixed-race people were incapable of genius. He saw race as a union of body and soul, where thinking was determined by anatomy. But as we've just seen, that's pure nonsense. Is there a gene that determines race? Scientists agree that race is a vague biological, social, and political concept. Skin color is just one piece of a much larger picture. In fact, two people from the same race can have more genetic and visible differences than two people from different ones. So, have you ever experienced racial prejudice personally? Let us know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next one.